Hong Kong, 2:17 a.m. Rain-soaked streets glisten under neon signs. A teenage boy stands frozen before a fortified door, the South Korean consulate. His knuckles hover, trembling. If this door opens, he lives. If it doesn't, he'll be dead by sunrise. Just 24 hours ago, this same boy stood on an international stage accepting a silver medal for mathematics. Now, he's a fugitive, hunted not for crime, but for his genius. Because North Korea doesn't just want his mind, they want his soul, to weaponize it in their cyber warfare units. This is the story of Ri Zhang-yol, the prodigy who calculated the most dangerous equation of his life: freedom versus certain death. Every superhero origin story begins with something extraordinary. For Ri Zhang-yol, it began in a Pyongyang classroom, where at 7 years old, he was already solving calculus problems that baffled his teachers. In most countries, such brilliance would be nurtured, celebrated. But in North Korea, exceptional talent isn't a gift, it's state property. While American children dreamed of becoming astronauts, Ri was being groomed for something darker. His mathematical mind, capable of seeing patterns invisible to others, made him the perfect candidate for North Korea's most secretive program, the Lazarus Hacking Group. They weren't just looking for programmers, they were looking for human computers. Between 2013 and 2016, Ri became North Korea's secret weapon in the International Mathematical Olympiad. 4 consecutive silver medals from Thailand to South Africa, Colombia to Hong Kong. Each victory brought pride to the regime, but each international trip planted dangerous seeds in Ri's mind. He saw other mathematicians from South Korea, America, Europe, laughing freely, browsing the internet, discussing ideas without fear. For a young man who'd only known isolation, these glimpses of freedom were intoxicating and utterly forbidden. The very talent that made him valuable was showing him a world he could never have. The turning point came in 2015. Returning from Thailand, Ri noticed subtle changes, officials asking strange questions, friends being interviewed, teachers acting nervous around him. In North Korea, this pattern means only one thing: you're being assessed for state service. Through hushed conversations, he pieced together the terrifying truth. The regime wanted to recruit him directly into Unit 180, North Korea's elite cyber warfare division. This wasn't about university or ordinary government work. This was about becoming a digital soldier in an invisible war, hacking banks, stealing cryptocurrency, and funding missile programs. His mathematics would become weapons. In a moment that would define both their lives, Ri confessed everything to his father: the fear, the recruitment, his desire to escape. What happened next defies everything we understand about North Korea. Instead of turning him in, his father, a mathematics teacher who'd instilled his love of numbers, pressed $200 in foreign currency into his hand, an amount that could get their entire family executed. 3 generations of collective punishment awaited them if discovered. In that silent exchange, a father chose his son's freedom over his own survival. It was the most courageous calculation either would ever make. July 2016, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. While other competitors focused on complex equations, Ri was solving a different kind of problem: how to escape one of the world's most brutal regimes. The North Korean delegation operated like a mobile prison: passports confiscated, constant surveillance, group activities only. But Ri noticed vulnerabilities. The minders were teachers, not security experts. The campus was open, unlike Pyongyang's controlled spaces, and Hong Kong, with its sprawling urban landscape, offered countless places to disappear. As he accepted his 4th silver medal, he wasn't smiling for the regime. He was counting down hours until his escape. 2 a.m. The dorm room echoed with the deep breathing of sleeping teammates. Ri Zhang-yol slid from his bunk fully dressed, shoes tied tight. The only light came from exit signs, casting long shadows down empty hallways. His heart hammered so loudly, he feared it would wake the entire floor. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like thunder. At the lobby, a security guard dozed at his desk. Rhee moved like a ghost, past the sleeping guard, through the automatic doors, into the humid Hong Kong night. For the first time in his life, he was alone. No minders, no curfew, no regime watching his every move. Just a teenager with $200 in his sock and a desperate prayer. The taxi driver didn't know he was carrying a fugitive. "Airport, please," he whispered in broken English. As the campus vanished behind them, a strange mix of terror and exhilaration flooded through him. He kept checking the rear window, half expecting to see North Korean agents following, but there was only rain and anonymous traffic. For 18 years, every movement had been monitored, every decision approved. Now, in the back of this random taxi, he was making the biggest decision of his life entirely alone. The $200 felt heavy in his sock, not just money, but his father's sacrifice, his family's risk, his only chance. Hong Kong International Airport at 4 a.m. is a city within a city. Rhee stepped into the vast departure hall, overwhelmed by the flood of travelers from every corner of the globe. Fluorescent lights, flight announcements in multiple languages, digital boards showing destinations he'd only dreamed of visiting. For a moment, he just stood there, a skinny teenager with a backpack, invisible in the crowd. Then he remembered his absence would be discovered at morning roll call. He had maybe 2 hours before the hunt began. His eyes scanned the counters, searching for the one airline that could save him: Korean Air. The Korean Air supervisor saw just another young Asian traveler until Rhee spoke those fateful words in Korean: "I need to go to South Korea. Can you help me?" When she hesitated, he leaned closer and whispered the truth that would change everything: "I'm from North Korea." Her eyes widened in shock. Within minutes, a station manager appeared, ushering Rhee to a private area. As he explained his story, the math competition, the midnight escape, the fear, their skepticism turned to stunned belief. This wasn't every day a North Korean Olympiad defector appeared at your counter at dawn. The consulate address felt like winning a lottery ticket, but getting there meant another nerve-wracking taxi ride across Hong Kong. As the cab wound through morning traffic, Rhee's mind raced. By now, his handlers had discovered the empty bed. Panic would be spreading through the North Korean delegation. They'd be contacting Chinese authorities, reporting him as kidnapped. If police found him first, he'd be deported back to certain death. The taxi stopped at a glass skyscraper, the Far East Finance Center. No flags, no obvious signs of South Korea. For a terrifying moment, he wondered if he'd been given the wrong address. The fifth-floor elevator doors opened to reveal frosted glass doors marked Consulate General of the Republic of Korea. 2 security guards immediately blocked his path. Visiting hours hadn't started. In that split second, Rhee's entire future hung in balance. Then he blurted out the words he'd practiced all night: "I'm a North Korean student. I need asylum." The guards froze, exchanged glances, then did something extraordinary. They beckoned him inside. As the secure doors closed behind him, Rhee experienced a sensation he'd never known: safety. For the first time in his life, he was on South Korean soil. South Korean diplomats appeared, their faces a mix of astonishment and concern. "You came alone? Are you okay?" one asked gently in Korean. Rhee simply nodded, the full weight of his journey crashing down on him. "I defected. I can't go back," he whispered, voice cracking. They offered him water, a simple gesture that nearly brought him to tears. After years of state-controlled existence, this basic human kindness felt revolutionary. But even as relief washed over him, new fears emerged. He was safe inside these walls, but outside, 3 governments were about to collide over one teenager's fate. Within hours, Rhee's defection became an international incident. Beijing faced an impossible choice: deport him to certain execution in North Korea, creating a PR nightmare, or allow his passage to Seoul, angering their volatile neighbor. Meanwhile, Pyongyang was furious, denouncing his abduction and pressuring China for return. South Korean diplomats worked frantically through back channels. And at the center of this geopolitical storm sat an 18-year-old boy in a windowless room, unaware he'd become a pawn in a much larger game. His mathematics had always been about finding solutions, but this equation had variables beyond any textbook. The consulate became his gilded cage, a small, windowless storage room converted into temporary living quarters. Outside, plainclothes Chinese police monitored every entrance. Inside, the eerie routine of captivity set in. Days blurred into weeks. Ri paced the limited space, his mathematical mind calculating probabilities of survival, outcomes for his family, chances of successful escape. Consulate staff brought Korean meals and tried to maintain normalcy, but everyone felt the tension. Every phone ring, every knock sent his heart racing. Was this the moment China decided his fate? The mathematics of guilt proved unsolvable. With each passing day, Ri's thoughts turned to his family. Had his father been arrested? Were his relatives in prison camps? North Korea's 3 generations punishment policy meant his entire bloodline could be suffering for his choice. The consulate staff avoided asking about his parents. They knew the subject was too painful. In private moments, Ri would remember his father's final embrace, the pressure of arms around his shoulders, the sound of breathing he might never hear again. His freedom came with the heaviest price imaginable: permanent separation from everyone he loved. After 70 days in limbo, a breakthrough emerged. China's relations with North Korea had soured over missile tests, and Beijing saw an opportunity for a calculated snub. They quietly approved Ri's passage to South Korea. The relief in the consulate was palpable. Suddenly, there was movement, paperwork, preparations, a flurry of activity. South Korea issued him a new passport under the pseudonym Lee Jong-ho. Hong Kong immigration granted a temporary visa. These documents represented more than travel papers. They were his ticket to rebirth. After 2 months of uncertainty, freedom was finally within reach. They left for the airport at dusk in an unmarked consulate car. Ri sat flanked by South Korean officials, Hong Kong's glittering skyline passing by like any normal evening. At the airport, Chinese plainclothes officers provided discreet escort, protection from potential North Korean operatives. As he approached immigration with his new passport, Ri held his breath, certain he'd be exposed. But the officer simply stamped Lee Jong-ho through without a second glance. Boarding the plane, he took a window seat. Only when the wheels lifted off Hong Kong tarmac did he exhale the breath he'd held for 70 days. Seoul National University campus felt like another planet. Ri, now Lee Jong-ho, walked among students who debated politics openly, browsed uncensored internet, made choices about their futures. Supermarkets overwhelmed him with options he'd never known existed. His mathematical talent hadn't rusted. Within a year, he gained admission to study mathematics at South Korea's top university. But every achievement carried bittersweet echoes. When he accessed Google for the first time, his inaugural search was for North Korea. Typing his homeland's name into a search bar to learn truths his country had hidden from him. Ri's defection humiliated Pyongyang so deeply that they suspended their Math Olympiad program for 2 years. When they returned in 2019, security was unprecedented. No more chances for brilliant minds to glimpse freedom. Today, Ri thrives in academic circles. His story a quiet legend among those who study North Korea. But success can't erase the cost. He'll likely never know his family's fate, never hear his father's voice again. His story raises haunting questions. How many other brilliant minds remain trapped in North Korea, calculating their own desperate equations for freedom?
And what would we risk for the right to think our own thoughts?